Welcome back to the cryptoworld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, Bitcoin is currently breaking below important support, while Ethereum is flashing a new signal that we need to pay attention to. So I'll be talking about that later in the video. Definitely watch to the end. First of all, just giving you a really quick update here on the 4-day Bitcoin chart, and right now the price of Bitcoin is still playing out this pullback within the larger bullish trend, as I've been talking about over and over again recently on the channel. Because once again, we do have a larger bearish divergence currently active on the chart, which means we should not be expecting any significant bullish momentum, at least in the short term. But technically speaking, as of right now, this pullback is still occurring within the larger bullish trend because we have not yet broken the higher low, higher high price structure. And on top of that, if you're looking at the super trend indicator, as of right now, this is still sitting in the green, indicating a larger bullish trend on the larger timeframes, the complete opposite to what we saw during 2022. And in order to invalidate this larger bullish trend, we would need to see a confirmed break back below around $25,000 with at least a 4-day candle close, but ideally weekly candle closes back below 25k in order to potentially start reversing the trend from bullish back to bearish on the larger time frames. But remember, in the short term, we're still currently looking bearish, as I've been talking about on the channel, but the short term does not necessarily change the longer term trend. But anyway, now taking a look at the daily Bitcoin chart, and right now this bearish divergence is still currently playing out on the daily time frame, as I've been talking about basically every day since all the way back up here around a month ago. So once again, as I've been saying since then, this means we're likely going to see either some choppy sideways price action, if not a slight pullback in the price of Bitcoin, which is exactly what has been playing out as expected. And so once again, as I've explained more about in recent videos here on the channel, this basically means the price of Bitcoin is currently within a shorter term bearish trend, kind of like what we saw back here. But remember, a short term bearish trend can still occur within a larger bullish trend, like what we saw back here during around May and June once again. And now, if you're looking at the daily Bitcoin price oscillators, first of all, the daily Bitcoin MACD is currently flipping a little bit more bearish, showing some more bearish momentum. But with that being said, the momentum is still not as strong as some of these previous movements, which means we should not necessarily expect a massive crash to the downside like what we saw in some of these previous moves. And instead, once again, we're likely going to see relatively mild price action on the daily time frame, nothing too significant compared to these previous moves. And now, if you're looking at the daily Bitcoin RSI, what's very interesting about this, besides the bearish divergence still currently playing out, is the fact that the daily Bitcoin RSI is currently the most oversold that we've seen since all the way back here during around the middle of March. And the time before that, where the RSI was this oversold, was all the way back here during November 2022 at the bear market bottom. And if you're looking at the Bitcoin price during each of these times, obviously these both occurred around some sort of local low in the price of Bitcoin before we were about to see a bit more of a bounce back to the upside. And now, obviously, it is worth pointing out that both of these previous examples, we did see the daily Bitcoin RSI actually enter into oversold territories, and right now the RSI is not currently oversold on the daily time frame. So technically speaking, we still have some room left to the downside in the short term, which means it is possible we could go a little lower in the short term. But essentially, this is telling us that we are potentially soon getting close to some sort of low in the price of Bitcoin when you're talking about the somewhat shorter term here. But once again, at least as of right now, this bearish divergence on the daily time frame is still currently active, which once again means we're still currently within this short-term bearish trend that is within a much larger bullish trend. And now, just staying on the daily Bitcoin chart, taking a look at this massive ascending line of support, which is sitting at approximately $29,000. And obviously, over the last 1 day or so, we have now seen a confirmed break below 29k, with one daily candle close confirming a break to the downside below 29k. And so technically speaking, this is a short-term bearish signal. Once again, again confirming the fact that we are looking more bearish than bullish in the shorter term, which means over the next few days or weeks. But as I explained in more detail in my last video, once again, even though we're currently looking bearish in the short term, this does not necessarily invalidate the much larger bullish trend here on the larger timeframes. And now if you're zooming into the 8-hour Bitcoin chart, looking at the Fibonacci retracement tool, we have just seen a break below the 38.2% Fibonacci level of support, which was sitting at around 28.9k to 29k approximately. And so technically speaking, that level should now be acting as new resistance, and the next level of support to pay attention to is the 50% retracement level, acting as support at around 28,000 to 28.1k. But in a more bearish scenario, if we actually confirm a break back below 28,000, then in that case, we should expect a move down towards the golden pocket, sitting in between around 27,000 to 27.2k. And as for short-term resistance, in case we see a bit of a bounce back in the short term, then in that case, once again, we should expect some resistance at around 29k, and above 29k, we also have strong resistance at around $30,000. And in case you're wondering about the short-term trend and momentum, once again, as I warned about in my last video, we are now seeing a return in some bearish momentum in the shorter term. And as for the short-term trend, once again, if you're looking at these smaller time frames, we're clearly seeing lower highs and lower lows, which is technically a bearish trend just in the short term. But once again, when you zoom out to the larger time frames, this is just a pullback within a much larger bullish trend, at least as of right now. But anyway, now getting into the Ethereum part of this video, this is on the daily ETH to US dollar chart, and right now the price of ETH is running into this important area of support, sitting in between around 1770 to 1820. But if we see a confirmed break below around 1770, then in that case, the next important area of support on the daily time frame is sitting in between around 1650 to 1.7k. And if you're looking at the daily Ethereum price oscillators, once again, as I mentioned in my last video, the daily Ethereum RSI is starting to flip more bearish now that it is forming a new lower low. And if you're looking at the daily Ethereum MACD, as I mentioned in my last video, this is now crossing back in the bearish direction and is showing some bearish momentum. But with that being said, as of right now, it is not showing as much momentum compared to some of these previous movements, which once again, as I explained on the daily time frame for Bitcoin earlier in the video, this means we should not necessarily expect a massive crash, like a 20% move to the downside, for example, and instead we're likely going to see relatively mild price action on the daily time frame, nothing too significant. And now, speaking of those daily Ethereum price oscillators, focusing on the RSI, right now the daily Ethereum RSI is currently the most oversold that we have seen since around the middle of June. And if you're looking at the time before that, where the RSI was this low, we also saw this happen back during around March 2023 and around November 2022. And if you simply look at the price of ETH during all of those examples where the RSI was this oversold, this low, obviously the price of ETH was very close to some sort of local low just before we saw a move back to the upside. And now, once again, as I said earlier for Bitcoin, as of right now, the daily Ethereum RSI is not yet in oversold territories, even though it is very close. So that basically means we still technically have some room left to the downside. So of course, it is still possible we could potentially go a little lower in the short term. But with that being said, as this RSI approaches oversold territories on the daily time frame, this basically means we're getting closer towards a low in the price of ETH and a possible bounce back to the upside sometime soon. But if you're taking a look at the 8-hour ETH to US dollar chart, obviously the short-term trend as of right now is still looking bearish, as I've been saying recently on the channel, because once again, we're still seeing lower highs and lower lows here on the smaller time frames, indicating a short-term bearish trend. And as for important support and resistance in the short term, right now the price of ETH is running into the important golden pocket area of support, sitting in between around 1760 to 1770, close to 1780. So essentially that area right there is the important area of support to pay attention attention to in the short term. But if we end up seeing a confirmed break below around 1760, then the next short-term support to pay attention to is the 78.6% Fibonacci level of support sitting at around 1710, just above 1.7k. And as for short-term resistance, in case we see a bit of a bounce back to the upside, then in that case, the 50% retracement level, which was previous support, should now be acting as new resistance, sitting at around 1820 to 1830. And above that level, if we saw breakouts back above 1830, then we still have this strong area of resistance right here at around 1870 to 1880. And once again, as for the short-term trend and momentum, as I've been warning about recently on the channel, we are technically looking more bearish than bullish if you're talking about the short term, because obviously we're seeing lower highs and lower lows here on the smaller time frames. But when you zoom out to the larger time frames, obviously this is currently occurring within a much larger bullish trend, because we're still seeing things like higher lows and higher highs here on the much larger time frames. And once again, I would only start to flip much more bearish again on the larger time frames if Bitcoin confirms a strong break back below around $25,000, which as of right now has not yet happened. And now, if you want to know how to maximize your profits in crypto, no matter if the price is going to the upside, to the downside, or simply chopping around sideways, then make sure to watch these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how to make money if the price is bullish or bearish using AI, and the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit from a choppy sideways price range. But anyway, that's everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.